In the year 2045, the world hurtled towards its end, but one person saw it coming. The vision of the apocalypse burned into the eyes of a single, terrified boy, a kid named Huang Ji, shunned by everyone as a clueless idiot. But he awakened a power that let him see the world's deepest secrets. Now he alone carries the weight of humanity's future on his shoulders, using his knowledge to defy the very laws of the universe. With every step he takes, the fate of mankind hangs in the balance, forging a new legend as he attempts to rewrite the future. And our story begins with a catastrophic volcanic eruption. Desperate cries for help are lost in the ensuing chaos. The mountain crumbles as desperate warnings are shouted. A blinding flash of light signals the end for the nearby village. And in the middle of it all, Huang Ji questions why this apocalypse has come. But this was never just a volcano. It was an invasion from another world. A vision so vivid he can't tell if he's awake or trapped in a nightmare. Then, a final beam of light descends from the alien mothership, and the world itself seems to shatter into a million pieces. But in an instant, Huang Ji jolts awake, gasping for air. His grandpa is by his side, and our boy laughs, relieved it was all a dream. He tries to play it cool, but his grandpa reveals he's been unconscious for an entire day. His grandpa scolds him for being so casual, urging him to see the doctor who watched over him. But Huang Ji just brushes it off, even as his grandpa heads out for the day. He reassures his worried grandfather, who leaves with a heavy sigh. But Huang Ji knows exactly what his grandpa is thinking, because for 16 years everyone has seen him as a simpleton. We flash back to his childhood, raised by his grandfather after his parents passed away. He was a strange child who never cried and didn't speak for years, earning the worried whispers of the villagers. The diagnosis came from Dr. Leang, an intellectual disability that shattered his grandfather's heart. But in that moment of despair, Huang Ji heard his grandpa's silent vow to protect him always, a voice that echoed not in his ears but directly in his mind. And soon it wasn't just his grandpa's thoughts he could hear, but everyone's. He was bombarded by the thoughts of everyone around him, a cacophony of pity and scorn. His power grew, letting him see information from everything, but the overload was too much for his young mind. As he grew older, he learned to navigate the endless stream of mundane, everyday thoughts. He eventually mastered the ability to filter out the noise, focusing only on what mattered. Yet he never dared to gaze at the stars, fearing the overwhelming torrent of cosmic information. It wasn't a natural satellite, but an ancient alien war machine built to monitor Earth. A weapon so powerful, its very position could trigger global catastrophes. But what truly intrigued him were the two enormous figures he saw standing on its surface. They were aliens, ancient observers who had been watching humanity for over 12,000 years. And in all that time, they had discovered only one thing of value in humanity: their taste. The shock of that cosmic truth is what knocked him unconscious for a full day. He now wonders if his apocalyptic dream was a premonition of Earth's destruction. For now, the aliens will continue to observe, waiting for the right moment to make their move. Feeling powerless against such a threat, he decides to push it aside and live his own life. His first stop is the village clinic to check in with Dr. Leang as promised. But when he arrives, he finds a worried crowd gathered outside. He overhears the whispers. The dedicated doctor has vanished without a trace. Knowing something is wrong, Huang Ji taps into his power to find answers. He processes all the information around him, piecing together clues from the scene. The vision becomes clear. Dr. Leang was drugged and abducted by a group of men. His vision reveals a witness, a young man named Li Fan, who watched the entire abduction from behind a tree. Meanwhile, the village chief and Officer Wang confirm the disappearance is highly suspicious. The officer questions the crowd, but no one claims to have seen a thing. But Huang Ji can hear the silent thoughts of the witness, Li Fan, who is riddled with guilt for staying quiet. Stepping forward, Huang Ji points him out to the officer, outing him as the one who saw everything. Li Fan immediately denies it, trying to discredit Huang Ji by calling him an idiot. But our boy calmly describes the exact spot where Li Fan was hiding, leaving the witness speechless. Li Fan's father, furious at his son's deception, grabs him and demands the truth. Breaking down, the boy confesses he saw Dr. Leang get taken by armed men, but was too terrified to speak up. With the kidnapping confirmed, Officer Wang gets a startling call with new information on the case. The news gets worse. The officer reveals that Dr. Liang's parents have also gone missing. As the villagers plead for her rescue, the motive behind the kidnapping remains a complete mystery. But Huang Ji already knows where they are, an abandoned temple hidden in the nearby mountains. Realizing no one would believe him, he resolves to handle this himself. He slips away from the crowd, determined to locate the kidnappers on his own. Racing through the woods, he knows that time is running out for Dr. Leang. He feels he must confirm with his own eyes that the kind doctor is safe. As he approaches, his power reveals a network of hidden traps laid out by the kidnappers. He tries to carefully navigate the treacherous path, but stumbles right into a tripwire. Tangled in wires, he crashes to the ground, his stealthy approach completely blown. He smirks, realizing his clumsy fall was actually a calculated move. By triggering the tripwire himself, he's cleared the path for the police who will eventually follow. Now, his focus is solely on the abandoned temple nestled in the mountains. But a sudden scream from inside snaps him back to the present. Dr. Leang is in immediate danger. He peers inside to see the doctor tied to a post, being interrogated by a group of thugs. Through her defiance, she insists she knows nothing about their demands. They accuse her parents of stealing a priceless golden Buddha and millions in funds. But Dr. Leang stands her ground, swearing she has no information for them. The leader, a man in sunglasses, grits his teeth in frustration. He had assumed that kidnapping the daughter of a key player would be the perfect leverage. The leader concludes that Dr. Leang truly knows nothing about her parents' secrets. Since she's now a witness, he gives the chilling order to silence her for good. Just outside, Huang Ji knows he's running out of time to save the doctor. But the alarm from Huang Ji's clumsy fall finally goes off, alerting the thugs inside. Hearing their plan to rush, Huang Ji realizes he has to step in himself. So he casually strolls into the temple, performing a bizarre morning exercise routine. The guards are left utterly baffled as he counts his steps, completely ignoring them. Dr. Leang desperately tries to protect him, pleading that he's just a simpleton who wandered in by mistake. One of the thugs recognizes him as the famously dim-witted Huang Ji from the village. The leader simply orders his men to drag him inside, ending his strange performance. As he's dragged forward, Huang Ji's eyes lock onto Dr. Leang, his voice filled with sudden concern for her injuries. The leader gives the chilling order to end them both, sneering that at least she'll have a companion. But in a blur of motion, Huang Ji drives a sharp elbow into the thug holding him. The man crumples to the ground, dropping his knife as our boy lands with perfect balance. Furious at his subordinate's incompetence, another thug steps up, deciding to handle it himself. He lunges forward with a murderous roar, ready to finish the job. But his attack is stopped dead in its tracks by Huang Ji's single, unmoving hand. The thug stumbles back, completely shocked by the impossible strength of the so-called idiot. With a cold, determined gaze, Huang Ji prepares his own counterattack. He lands a precise strike to the man's neck, calmly calling it another stretching exercise. A third thug rushes in with a knife, determined to end this. But Huang Ji dodges the wild swing with effortless grace. He counters with a sharp chop to the man's wrist, calling it another exercise. A swift kick to the ribs sends the attacker flying. Huang Ji stands over his fallen opponent with a confident smirk. The leader demands to know why his man is just lying there, but the thug can't feel his own limbs. The man in sunglasses finally realizes this is no ordinary village idiot. He can only stare in disbelief as Huang Ji stands there, completely unfazed. Internally, Huang Ji is just as surprised, noting how smoothly his first real fight went. He knows that facing armed men should have been a life-or-death struggle, even for a master. But he realizes that by observing their muscle movements, he can predict their every attack. The leader scoffs, still underestimating the boy standing before him. He orders his last remaining man to attack with him, refusing to be beaten. But Huang Ji ignores them, rushing over to check on the terrified Dr. Leang. He begins to untie her, but she desperately tells him to run and get help. Furious at being ignored, the two remaining thugs lunge at him with their knives. He turns back with a calm expression, as if they pose no threat at all. In a flash, he ducks between their wild swings, their blades missing by inches. Seeing him in danger, Dr. Leang throws herself at one of the attackers. She tackles the man to the ground, screaming for Huang Ji to use the chance to escape. But Huang Ji turns his attention to the leader, landing a precise blow that sends a jolt of agony through the man's body. He follows up with a powerful kick, sending the last thug flying across the room. His power reveals the man is just a sedentary office worker, so out of shape that Huang Ji didn't even need his full strength. Just then, Officer Wang and his team burst into the temple, ordering everyone to surrender. But they can only stare in disbelief at the scene before them. All the kidnappers are already down. The leader pounds the floor in a pathetic rage, furious that his years of planning were ruined by the village idiot. Sometime later, a warm drink is offered to the now safe Dr. Liang. Outside the temple, she confirms to Officer Wang that it was Huang Ji who single-handedly saved her. The officer ruffles our boy's hair, praising him for being a hero but warning him not to worry his grandpa again. Later at the station, the officer asks for a man named Lu Zongmin, shocking the leader who thought no one knew his real name. Officer Wang dismisses the leader's silence, ordering his men to take the criminals away for a long interrogation. As the chaos settles, Dr. Leang grabs Huang Ji's arm, thanking him for being there to save her. Huang Ji just smiles, explaining that his grandpa always taught him to do the right thing. A gentle smile crosses Dr. Liang's face as she agrees with the simple wisdom. But then, with newfound resolve, she calls out to Officer Wang, ready to confess everything and finally close this case. She reveals the full story of the museum theft, finally letting go of the false bond with her criminal foster parents. At the station, Lu Zongmin tries to play the victim, claiming he was forced into the crime and felt guilty. But the officers are skeptical, pointing out that his own men identified him as the boss. Despite the inconsistencies in his story, the police have no other leads and are forced to halt their investigation. Watching from behind a one-way mirror, Huang Ji knows he's in the clear, but can't shake the feeling that he could have handled things better. Back in the village, Huang Ji's grandpa is working in the fields when his attention is called. He sees a news report showing Dr. Liang's parents being taken into custody. The investigation leads the police and a construction team to the village reservoir. Officer Wang explains that the thieves confessed to hiding the stolen golden Buddha at the bottom of the lake. But Huang Ji's power reveals the truth. They've hidden millions more that the police don't know about. He knows their plan to dig it up after their release will never come to pass. A crane lifts the priceless artifact from the water, revealing the long-lost Tang Dynasty golden Buddha. But one of the officers eyes it with suspicion, noting that it looks more like copper than solid gold. A museum expert clarifies that while it's coated in copper, its incredible weight proves it must be gold underneath. But Huang Ji's power reveals an even deeper secret. The statue isn't gold at all, but a mix of strange metals and an unknown element. His power reveals the statue is alien machinery, made from an element not found on Earth. As the workers load the artifact, he knows he can't learn anything more without examining it further. He questions why aliens would leave their technology behind if they only see humanity as a food source. Realizing this village holds no more answers, he decides he must go to a big city to continue his investigation. Later that night, under the cover of darkness, Huang Ji begins digging for something else entirely. He unearths a hidden case, knowing it contains the $3 million the police never found. The thieves had buried it in a nearby cemetery, a clever use of reverse psychology. But for Huang Ji, no logic or password can hide a secret from his power. He opens the case to reveal stacks of cash, which he claims without a second thought. This money is just the beginning, the starting capital he'll need to fund his fight for humanity's future. But there's another more personal reason driving him: his grandfather's failing health. He hatches a plan to convince his grandpa, using his desire for an education as the perfect cover. With his plan set, he prepares to leave, but first he has to deal with the heavy case. He tries to drag it, but the sheer weight of the cash is more than he anticipated. The case is so heavy it breaks the wheels, sending him tumbling to the ground. Exhausted, he realizes dragging it home is impossible and decides to find a new hiding spot. The struggle is so intense that his grandpa calls out, worried he's having another one of his episodes. The next morning, he brushes off his grandpa's concern, claiming he just slept poorly. Now, he sets out to find someone in the village willing to take him to the city. Using his power, he scans the villagers, searching for the perfect candidate for his plan. But as he scans the villagers, he finds that no one is willing to go to the city. It seems his plan to find a ride has hit a dead end. Even Officer Wang, who once lived there, has no desire to return to the competitive urban jungle. The village chief is out of the question, but just as he's about to give up, his power locks onto a new target. A young couple, Zheng Xuan and Su Lingli, have just returned to the village. He remembers Su Lingli worked in Shanghai and sees her as the perfect person to help him. But when he scans her companion, he uncovers a shocking secret. The man is a world-class hacker with a fortune that dwarfs his own. A new possibility opens up. He could learn the man's skills just by scanning his memories. But he knows the process is slow and inefficient, as he can only absorb 1 second of memory at a time. Putting the thought aside for now, he approaches the house where Su Lingli warmly invites him inside. She introduces him to her boyfriend, Zheng Xuan, whom Huang Ji politely greets. Su Lingli quietly explains Huang Ji's supposed disability, asking her boyfriend to be understanding. After catching up, Huang Ji and his grandfather are invited to join them for a meal. The group enjoys a pleasant afternoon together in the courtyard. The village chief asks Zheng Xuan if he can take a look at their broken television. The world-class hacker gets to work, examining the ancient piece of technology. As Huang Ji watches, Zheng Xuan explains that the TV is on its last legs. But when the hacker looks for a specific part, Huang Ji is already there, holding it out for him. He presents the exact component Zheng Xuan was searching for. A flicker of suspicion crosses the man's face, wondering how the boy knew precisely what he needed. Zheng Xuan asks if he's ever repaired a TV before, to which Huang Ji simply says no. Our boy explains he just watched the disassembly and is mentally reversing the process. The hacker is stunned, realizing the kid has a photographic memory far beyond a normal person's. To test this theory, Zheng Xuan presents his next challenge, a completely disassembled laptop. He asks Huang Ji to reassemble it, and our boy calmly agrees to give it a shot. With movements that are impossibly smooth and precise, Huang Ji gets to work as the hacker watches in disbelief. He finishes in record time, holding up the perfectly assembled laptop, leaving Zheng Xuan convinced he's a savant. Su Lingli walks in just as her boyfriend praises Huang Ji's incredible, almost unbelievable talent. Zheng Xuan tells him it's a waste for someone with his skills to stay in the village, probing to see what he'll say. Seizing the opportunity, Su Lingli offers to help him study in Shanghai, playing right into Huang Ji's hands. She urges her boyfriend to help, insisting such talent shouldn't be wasted in the village. Huang Ji knew she would be his ally, but even so, his grandfather immediately shuts down the idea. Our boy realizes convincing him won't be so simple. The others try to reason with him, but his grandpa reminds them of how badly Huang Ji was bullied in the past. But Zheng Xuan steps in, revealing the boy's incredible feat of reassembling a laptop without a schematic. His grandfather is still in disbelief, questioning how he could have learned such a complex skill. The hacker explains that talent is innate and asks Huang Ji to prove it by doing it again. As the village chief expresses his own doubts, Huang Ji prepares for his performance. And in another flash of brilliance, he presents the finished laptop, leaving his grandfather utterly speechless. His grandfather realizes he's never seen Huang Ji so focused and full of life. Overcome with emotion, he praises his grandson's newfound talent, believing it's a gift from the heavens. But the village chief raises a practical concern, suggesting a technical college since Huang Ji never finished school. Huang Ji looks confident, knowing this is all part of his plan to earn a diploma. The chief tries to reassure him, but his grandpa is still deeply worried about the dangers of the big city. Su Lingli sees the old man remains unconvinced, wondering what they can do to change his mind. But Huang Ji plays his final card, telling his grandpa he'll stay and take care of him forever if he wishes. The words echo in the old man's mind, forcing him to confront a difficult truth. He realizes that by keeping Huang Ji here, he's limiting his grandson's future to a life of farming. And for the first time, he truly questions if he's been thinking about what's best for the boy's future. His grandfather finally makes a decision, telling him he can't stay here forever. He urges Huang Ji to go out into the world and seize this chance to change his destiny. As they embrace, his grandpa tells him to study hard, and Huang Ji promises to do his best. But our boy knows he manipulated the old man's guilt, a necessary sacrifice for the path ahead. He silently vows to find a cure for his grandpa's illness before turning his attention to the alien threat. And so Huang Ji leaves his village behind, heading for the city on a high-speed train. Arriving at the station, Su Lingli tells him to follow them to the place where he'll be staying. She leads him to a massive apartment complex, explaining it's better if he lives with them for now. But Zheng Xuan seems hesitant, suggesting they find a separate apartment for him instead. Su Lingli playfully questions his motives, and he quickly backtracks, flustered by her accusation. Internally, Zheng Xuan admits he can't exactly reveal his secret life as a hacker. Just then, Su Lingli gets a call from work, already being pulled away by her job. She entrusts Huang Ji to her boyfriend's care before rushing off to the office. Zheng Xuan sets him up in the apartment next door, promising to be nearby if he needs anything. But Huang Ji knows they both have secrets and decides it's best if they each mind their own business. He then asks to visit a bookstore, and Zheng Xuan agrees to take him. They soon arrive at the massive city bookstore. Inside, Huang Ji playfully hands the hacker a book, telling him to read it carefully. But Zheng Xuan grows suspicious, watching as Huang Ji sits perfectly still for half an hour. Our boy is completely absorbed, his focus locked onto the pages before him. Zheng Xuan yawns, agreeing to leave him be and return later in the evening. Huang Ji smiles, perfectly content with the arrangement. As soon as he's alone, he leaves the bookstore with a new objective, to retrieve that item. He makes his way through the bustling city transit system. Our boy studies the complex subway map, navigating the urban sprawl with ease. His power locks onto his destination, the city's central mail sorting facility. He arrives at the counter to pick up a heavy package sent from his village 2 days ago. With the massive case loaded onto a cart, he wheels it outside. He flags down a taxi, giving the driver the address for his new apartment. Inside, he reflects on his plan. He mailed the 80 pounds of cash ahead, and now, with his 3 million secured, it's time to settle in. He arrives at the Platinum Apartments, ready to find a base of operations in the city. Stepping inside, he calls out, announcing he's here to view a potential new home. A woman with a scarred face appears, and Huang Ji explains he's looking for a long-term rental. She confirms he's the one who inquired about a massive 4-bedroom unit. As she leads him away, she internally scoffs at his simple clothes, planning to overcharge the country bumpkin. She pitches him a dark, gloomy room, but his power reveals its grim history. Damp, cold, and the site of a previous suicide. With a knowing smirk, he calls out her blatant attempt to pass off a haunted house as a palace. Stunned, she asks how he knew, but he just points upwards, mentioning a much better room she failed to show him. She panics, realizing he somehow knows about her secret, unlisted side hustle apartment. Cutting through the excuses, Huang Ji pulls out a massive wad of cash, telling her to take him to her best room. Her greedy demeanor instantly shifts as she eagerly agrees to show him the way. She leads him on, now convinced he's the young master of some powerful family. They arrive at a sleek, modern apartment, which Huang Ji agrees will be a suitable base. The landlady makes one last suggestive offer, hinting at the services available in her other room. But Huang Ji coldly dismisses her, and she wisely decides to find an easier target. With his temporary base secured, he immediately moves on to the next step, acquiring a high-spec computer. Soon after, a team of delivery drivers arrives with a mountain of computer parts. As they haul the equipment inside, the landlady watches from afar, baffled by her mysterious new tenant. Surrounded by a storm of components, Huang Ji begins the assembly with intense focus. He stands before his finished setup, remarking that his first time using a computer is proving to be quite exciting. He finds that theory and practice are two different things, his fingers moving awkwardly across the keyboard. The sheer volume of information online is overwhelming, forcing him to block out the noise and focus his search. But his initial queries yield nothing but pop culture references and brand names, a dead end of useless data. Refining his search, he uncovers a web of conspiracy theories, impressed by how close humanity can get to the truth without his powers. His attention is drawn to one user in particular, someone who seems to know far too much about the secrets of the moon. Using his power, he tracks the user to an internet cafe, but the digital trail ends there. He deduces the user is hiding their identity, likely using a fake ID to stay off the grid. Deciding on a new approach, he plans to reach out directly through the forums. But after waiting with no response, his patience begins to wear thin. He tries adding the user on a chat app, easily guessing the answer to their security question. But his friend request is immediately denied. Huang Ji clenches his fists in frustration, wondering why he was rejected. He decides that if the user won't accept, he'll just have to force the connection himself. He sends a friendly message, hoping to start a conversation about aliens, and to his delight, he finally gets a reply. But the response is a stream of insults, accusing him of being a hacker and telling him to get lost. Huang Ji sighs, disappointed by the hostility of the online world. He sends another message, this time with a much more direct and threatening tone. He waits for the response, his new message hanging in the chat. The user's tone changes instantly, now begging for forgiveness as Huang Ji reveals he knows their other secret usernames. Huang Ji sighs in frustration, thinking he's found the wrong person entirely. But he decides to test his abilities anyway, demanding they speak face-to-face over video. The user on the other end agrees, but is confused when he can't see Huang Ji's face. Our boy confirms his suspicion. His power can't gather information through a screen. So he cuts to the chase, asking where the user got his information about aliens. The man eagerly launches into a tirade about secret FBI files and alien involvement in the Challenger disaster. He claims the aliens made a deal with the US government, even helping them build a base at Area 51. But his next claim is that the moon landing itself was a complete fabrication. Huang Ji's patience begins to wear thin as he listens to the baseless theories. The user drones on about footprints and shadows, completely oblivious to Huang Ji's growing annoyance. Just as he's lost in thought, a voice calls out from next door reminding him it's time for dinner. We flash back to the bookstore, where he confidently bought a mountain of textbooks. He knows he must set aside the alien threat for now and focus on building his own foundation of knowledge. Back in his apartment, he dives into his studies with an intensity he's never shown before. In no time at all, he's absorbed everything, realizing he's wasted years not using his power to its full potential. His ability is more than just a photographic memory. It's a perfect, stable archive of everything he sees. He doesn't just learn facts, he instantly masters their application, a process that feels like cheating the system. Before he knew of gravity, but now he can see its precise force acting on every object around him. He understands that by studying, he's not just learning, but actively strengthening and evolving his own power. As a new day dawns over the city, Huangji's journey of self-improvement has only just begun. The next morning, a tired Zheng Xuan emerges from his room after another sleepless night. He checks in on Huangji, who invites him inside, confirming he's already eaten. Zheng Xuan is surprised to find him already studying, and Huangji explains he's making up for lost time. Offering some encouragement, Zheng Xuan tells him to make his grandpa proud before heading out for the day. Alone again, Huangji unpacks a new set of expensive medical books, determined to find a cure for his grandfather. He starts with a book on Chinese medicine, believing it holds secrets that modern science has yet to uncover. As he reads, his power allows him to sense not just the known meridians, but countless others hidden within the human body. He focuses on one in particular, a primary meridian he dubs the divine meridian, which has never been documented. He quickly understands its function, a network that transmits electrochemical signals to control the body's internal organs. This new knowledge makes him wonder if this is the secret that separates elite athletes from ordinary people. He realizes it's not just about muscle, but something deeper. The true answer lies in their powerful internal organs, a system that works in perfect harmony. And to control this system, he'll need to use acupuncture despite its limitations. He decides to test his theory on himself, targeting 2 key points on the divine meridian. Using known acupoints as a starting guide, he begins the delicate procedure. He takes a deep breath, steeling himself for what comes next. With the primers in place, he prepares for the main event. He drives the needle in, a jolt of energy coursing through his body. The sensation is overwhelming, a feeling of suffocation that leaves him gasping for air. Now he must find the hidden growth hormone acupoint, a shifting target he has only one chance to hit. With unwavering focus, he finds the precise location and drives the needle home. An intense heat floods his body as steam rises from his skin. He grits his teeth, determined to hold the position and maximize the effects. His eyes burn with concentration as the energy surges through him, but the strain is too much, and his consciousness begins to fade. He jolts awake sometime later, realizing he passed out from the ordeal. But it was all part of the plan as a preset alarm begins to ring. The experiment was a success. He can feel his body has grown stronger, his growth phase extended. But his victory comes at a cost, as he realizes the procedure has shaved 5 years off his life. Just then, a knock at the door calls him to lunch, a perfect interruption to his heavy thoughts. After lunch, Zheng Xuan takes Huangji on a tour of the school he'll be attending. But our boy knows this place is just a stepping stone, a way to get a diploma without wasting too much time. He seems completely unfazed, enjoying a simple ice cream bar as they walk. Just then, Zheng Xuan gets a call from Su Lingli, who wants to go shopping. Huangji seizes the opportunity, telling him to go ahead since he's already memorized the way back. With his guide gone, Huangji decides to use this time to gather more information. He returns to his apartment, determined not to be fooled by online scammers again. This time, his search is far more specific: how to stimulate acupoints without using needles. Suddenly, a message pops up from an unknown user, offering to teach him martial arts. The unexpected offer piques his interest, a new path opening up before him. The user begins to explain the legends of martial arts, an ancient skill passed down through generations. They speak of masters who could defeat 10 men with a single powerful strike, and others who could seemingly fly through the air, vanishing without a trace. Some were even said to condense their energy into devastating sweeps of power. But Huangji remains skeptical, remembering the boastful stories an old master in his village used to tell. He knows that most of what he's found online is just fiction, but he's still willing to learn what he can. He asks his new contact if internal energy is real, and the user confirms it, explaining a training method that involves absorbing starlight. Huangji is immediately confused by the strange logic. He questions the user's reasoning, but the person gets defensive, boasting about their 10 years of training. But as Huangji continues to probe, the user's story quickly begins to fall apart. And just like that, the so-called master deletes his account in shame. He leans back, concluding that finding real answers online is a dead end. Still, he finds some value in the user's files, which contain surprisingly accurate details on the body's weak points. But the rest is just theatrical nonsense, like this so-called lightning whip technique. He's left to ponder his next move, his investigation hitting another wall. Just then, a call from Zheng Xuan interrupts his thoughts, forcing him to put his search on hold. On the phone, Zheng Xuan and Su Lingli bicker playfully after checking in on him. A short while later, the couple returns to their apartment next door. Su Lingli checks in on Huang Ji, who thanks her and Zheng Xuan for their hospitality. She praises his dedication to his studies, and he explains he's just trying to make up for lost time. She tells him his dedication puts her mind at ease, happy that bringing him here was the right choice. But she insists he needs a break, dragging him out for a meal that Zheng Xuan will be paying for. The three of them share a toast and enjoy a pleasant hot pot dinner together. Afterwards, Zheng Xuan carries a tipsy Su Lingli, telling Huang Ji they have some things to attend to. Huang Ji stands awkwardly outside his door, realizing he should have turned off his mind-reading ability much earlier. Back in his room, he picks up his phone to continue his search for information on martial arts. He finds some of it plausible but dismisses the more mystical concepts like Qigong, but his research is suddenly interrupted by a series of loud thuds from the apartment next door. He's left completely flustered, complaining about the paper-thin walls and the couple's late-night activities. He realizes the acupuncture didn't just strengthen him, but also enhanced his hearing. His power now lets him see the bioelectric energy of the couple next door, a constant stream of interference. And in that moment, everything clicks into place. It's not just noise, it's bioelectricity. He understands that the human body is a complex network of electrical impulses, the very energy that sustains life. The mystical concept of qi was never magic at all. It was science, a force he now calls electric gong. For 2 weeks, he studied relentlessly, but his progress has stalled. He even tries to test his new theory on a small mouse. But the current he can generate is barely a spark, not even strong enough to faze the tiny creature. He concludes that learning from books alone has taken him as far as he can go. It's time to seek out real experts, and he already has 2 doctors in mind. He arrives at a local hospital, using his power to scan for a worthy teacher. The first doctor he finds, Jiang Wan, is a pathology expert ranked far too low for his needs. The second, Li Wei, is a more respectable 170,000th in the world, a rank that still pales in comparison to Huang Ji's own self-taught rise to the top 500,000 in just 2 weeks. He decides the man will have to do, stepping up to register for an appointment. After a short wait, his number is finally called, but inside, the doctor is stunned, wondering how his own global ranking could have dropped so much in a single hour. Huang Ji understands immediately. It's a live system, and hundreds of doctors just surpassed this man's skill. The examination begins, but our boy isn't here for a simple checkup. As the doctor listens to his heart, Huang Ji activates his power, preparing to absorb every bit of the man's medical knowledge. A torrent of medical knowledge floods his mind, a direct transfer of skill and experience. The acupuncture he performed earlier has already enhanced his body, increasing the oxygen supply to his brain, and now his mind processes information at a superhuman rate. The doctor is baffled by his findings, noting that Huang Ji has the physical conditioning of a professional athlete. So Huang Ji plays the part, describing symptoms of a weak heart and heavy breathing. Internally, the doctor realizes the boy's heart and lungs are so powerful that he's misinterpreting their strength as a problem. Unable to find a physical issue, he orders a series of tests to rule out any other possibilities. But Huang Ji has already gotten what he came for, thanking the doctor as he prepares to leave. Just then, the doctor notices his own global ranking has plummeted by over 1,000 spots. And in that same moment, Huang Ji's own ranking skyrockets, a leap in skill so massive it feels like cheating. By absorbing the doctor's knowledge, Huang Ji also learned about his past as a promising PhD candidate. He was once a respected lecturer with a bright future ahead of him. But after offending the hospital director, he was banished to a dead-end job, crushing his spirit. Over time, his confidence eroded, and his professional ranking plummeted. The same principle applies to Zheng Xuan, whose hacker ranking has dropped from focusing on other work. Huang Ji understands that learning is a constant battle. To stop moving forward is to fall behind. He realizes that everyone, even geniuses, has periods of ascent, peak performance, and inevitable decline. And with his power, he can analyze anyone to see which phase of life they're currently in. He decides to test this new theory on a frustrated driver stuck in traffic. His power reveals the man is motivated by criticism and is currently in his rising phase, about to hit his peak. His power shows the man is a programmer, driven by the need to prove his worth, but the sheer volume of information makes him wonder if he's actually predicting the future. He realizes it's not a prophecy, but a projection of the most likely outcome, an outcome that can be changed with just a single well-placed insult. He sits back, satisfied with his little experiment in manipulating fate. Now, he wonders if he can apply the same principle to his own destiny. But when he tries to look into his own future, his mind is flooded with a chaotic storm of possibilities. He desperately tries to shut it down, overwhelmed by the infinite branching paths. Snapping back to reality, he clutches his chest, gasping for air. The experience leaves him shaken, having glimpsed countless versions of his own life. He understands that by sensing the future, he has the power to change it, making it completely undefined. He realizes that society is a complex web where even a single thought can alter destiny. But to see the fate of all humanity, he must gaze far into the distant future. And so he pushes his power to its absolute limit. The first year passes in relative peace, a calm before the storm. But in 5 years, the world is plunged into war, a brutal conflict erupting in the West. 10 years from now, a global economic collapse brings nations to their knees. And then he sees the final date, the year it all ends, 2045. He sees a strange blue sun hanging in the sky, a chilling omen of what's to come. And just as quickly as it appeared, the terrifying vision shatters and fades away. He sees a fleeting moment of peace before the end. Then, a wave of intense radiation suddenly wipes out nearly all life on Earth. It wasn't an invasion, but a strange blue light that appeared from nowhere, erasing humanity in an instant. He wonders if there's any way to prevent this, if he can unite the world in time. But the vision only grows more terrifying, showing cities consumed by fire from the sky. He watches helplessly as countless lives are extinguished in a single blinding flash. The sheer scale of the destruction is almost too much for him to comprehend. He's suddenly pulled from the vision by a voice calling out to him. A stranger stands over him, relieved to see that he's finally awake. Huangji learns he was only unconscious for a few minutes, though it felt like an eternity. Huangji brushes off the man's concern, claiming he's just sleep-deprived. The stranger jokes that he looks like a student cramming for exams, and Huangji offers a simple thanks. But then Huangji turns the tables, suggesting the man should get a checkup of his own. The man scoffs at the idea, but Huangji insists he can tell just by looking if someone is sick. His power reveals a hidden tumor, and he warns the man to get it removed within 2 months or face the consequences. The stranger just stares, and Huangji realizes he has to find a way to make this man believe him. But just as he's about to press the issue, his power reveals an unexpected change in the future. So he quickly backtracks, claiming it was all a joke before telling the man not to forget his phone. The stranger is left completely baffled, wondering why Huangji would mention his phone. Our boy simply tells him he'll find out soon, leaving the man to wonder about the strange encounter. Back at the Platinum Apartments, Huangji returns to his base of operations. He sits before his computer, the weight of his knowledge pressing down on him. Only 35 years remain. He knows that any public interference could shorten that timeline, a risk he can't afford to take. The conclusion is clear. If the first blue sun was a natural event, the second can only be alien intervention. Elsewhere, a young man with blonde hair presents a bag of golden carp to his teacher. The master accepts the gift, acknowledging the effort his student has made. But the young man insists that no expense is too great if it helps create the legendary golden elixir. The teacher explains that after 50 years of gathering ingredients, his own time is nearly up. He tells his student, a natural talent for cultivation, that the elixir is meant for him. The young man is left speechless, overwhelmed by his master's selfless offer. The master tells his student to control his impatience, and the young man apologizes for getting carried away. He explains that the boy's ambition is the very thing holding him back from sensing qi. He dismisses his student, ordering him to reflect for 3 days before returning for the elixir. But as the young man gets up to leave, his teacher asks if he intends to settle the bill. The student agrees, but his master insists that the ingredients he brought are a separate matter from the elixir. The only repayment he desires is for his student to finally sense qi. The young man is touched, realizing his teacher has never asked for anything in return for his guidance. He's overwhelmed by his master's selflessness, knowing the golden elixir is meant for him. With a final bow, he promises to go and reflect as instructed. But just as he leaves, a group of thugs appears, calling out for an old scoundrel they've finally found. The leader of the thugs points an accusing finger, demanding the old man return his money. The young student can only watch in shock as his master is confronted. The master calmly sips his tea, asking if the man's boss was the one who roughed him up. He furiously explains that the old man scammed him out of his boss's money, and now his own life is on the line. But the master simply admits he did it on purpose, claiming the money has already been donated. Enraged by the confession, the leader orders his men to seize the old man. But the master just leans back with a confident laugh, completely unfazed by the threat. His men hesitate, confused by the old man's strange reaction to their intimidation. He explains that he's laughing because they fail to recognize the truth of the situation. He then turns to his student, offering to transfer some of his own chi so the boy can teach these thugs a lesson. The master places a hand on his student's back, seemingly channeling his power. As the thug closes in, the young man feels a surge of energy course through him. He throws a punch with newfound confidence, ready to prove his worth. But the thug leader easily intercepts the attack, stopping it with a single hand. He overpowers the student in an instant, grabbing him by the face. A brutal counterattack sends the young man flying backwards in pain. The thug holds him up, completely baffled by the lack of any real power. Just then, his men realize the old master has already escaped through the window. Furious at being tricked, the leader takes his anger out on the abandoned student. The young man is left broken on the floor, his master's lesson a harsh and painful one. He lies on the floor, realizing the golden elixir was a scam he fell for despite his doubts. He admits his own greed made him the perfect victim for the old man's elaborate con. The thug leader grabs him, demanding to know where the old master lives, but the student insists he was also deceived. Suddenly, his phone rings, and a mysterious voice gives him a 3-second countdown to pretend it's a spam call. He nervously tells the thug it was just a telemarketer, hoping his lie is convincing. As the leader forces him to write an IOU, a voice in his head begins a strange countdown from 17. With a grim expression, he holds the pen, his mind racing. The countdown continues as he prepares to sign away his debt. Just as the count finishes, the lights suddenly go out, plunging the room into darkness. In the pitch black, the thugs cry out in confusion as they stumble around blindly. The thugs give chase, furious that their target has escaped into the night. They lose him for a moment, but one of the men points them in the right direction. The leader roars in frustration, ordering his men to hunt the boy down. But as the young student runs for his life, he fails to notice the figure waiting for him in the alley. A hand suddenly clamps down on his shoulder, stopping him in his tracks. He's brought to an abrupt halt by the mysterious stranger. A sharp blow sends a jolt of pain through him, leaving him stunned and bleeding. He collapses to the ground, looking up in disbelief as he recognizes his savior. Huang Ji stands over him with a calm expression, confirming the thugs are no longer a threat. The young man breathes a sigh of relief, grateful for the timely intervention. The young man finally connects the dots, asking if Huang Ji was the mysterious voice on the phone. Huang Ji confirms it, handing back the young man's belongings. Overjoyed, the student thanks him profusely for saving his life. But Huang Ji simply dismisses the praise, asking why he didn't just call the police. The young man explains he couldn't risk getting expelled, even if it meant taking on a massive debt. He introduces himself as Lin Li, bowing deeply and promising to repay the favor one day. But Huang Ji just tells him to follow, already walking away. Confused, Lin Li asks where they're headed, but our boy remains cryptic. He tries to get Huang Ji's name for his phone, but our boy has a strange request. He tells Lin Li to save the number under a new name, Hua Shu. Lin Li questions how he got his number, but Huang Ji has a simple explanation. He asks the hospital. As they walk, Lin Li notices a strange, unique rhythm to Huang Ji's steps. He's fascinated by this extraordinary presence, wondering if he's finally met a true master. He calls out the uniqueness of his technique, and Huang Ji seems impressed that he noticed. Our boy then begins to explain his own creation, a set of techniques he developed just today. The first group involves breathing and posture, a method he claims can extend one's lifespan. The second benefit is the precise control of internal organs, allowing him to expel even deadly toxins. And the third is enhancing bioelectric sensitivity, sharpening his senses to a superhuman level. He believes that with enough practice, he can achieve perfect energy efficiency, like a perpetual motion machine. But even with this incredible breakthrough, he knows it's still not nearly enough. He knows that mastering this new technique is a monumental task, one that would take years of uninterrupted practice. Just then, Lin Li spots a familiar face in the crowd, the very man they were looking for. The old con artist sits calmly, completely unaware he's been found. Huang Ji steps forward, calmly telling the old man to return what he stole. The master turns around, feigning confusion as if he has no idea who they are. But Lin Li's patience has run out, and he grabs the man, demanding he stop playing games. The old man immediately plays the victim, clutching his chest and faking a heart condition. Huang Ji places a hand on Lin Li's arm, stopping him from escalating the situation. The master scoffs, warning Huang Ji to be careful when standing up for others. He then mocks our boy's strong build, dismissing him as a simple farmer from the north. Lin Li tries to warn him not to be fooled, but Huang Ji calmly tells him to stand back. The old man continues his cold reading, guessing that Huang Ji's family owns a small plot of land. He then correctly deduces that Huang Ji was orphaned, and our boy plays along, feigning sadness. Lin Li grows more worried, realizing the old fraud is using the same eerily accurate tricks on his new friend. The con artist continues, weaving a tale of leaving home for education, a story that hits dangerously close to the truth. But Lin Li challenges him, demanding to know what Huang Ji actually does for a living. The old man confidently declares that he's a sports student, training to be a professional athlete. But Huang Ji's gaze hardens, questioning the man's simplistic assumption. He then shatters the illusion, revealing he dropped out of school and has never trained in sports a day in his life. Standing over the fraud, Huang Ji calls him out for wasting his life on petty scams. The old man feigns ignorance, claiming he has no memory of ever being a cop. But Huang Ji presses on, deducing the man is on the run after struggling overseas. He points out the man's desperation, living under a false name while being hunted by someone powerful. Huang Ji places a firm hand on his shoulder, his grip tightening. He sarcastically praises the con artist for stooping so low as to bully students. But his next words cut deeper, revealing he knows the old man has a son, leaving the fraud completely stunned. Huang Ji calmly explains he learned it all using the man's own technique. Cold reading. The old man can only marvel at the skill, explaining the art of analyzing body language to deduce a person's past. Our boy knows the man's skills are impressive, but they're no match for his own power. With his omniscience, he doesn't need tricks, leaving the con artist to wonder if he's just run into a force he can't possibly escape. The old con artist decides it's time to settle this confrontation, but a blonde thug steps forward, unimpressed by the old man's posturing. The con artist calls out for backup, shouting a name into the street, and a massive, shirtless shopkeeper appears from behind him. The old man gestures for his new ally to join him in the fight. The thug is taken aback, realizing the shopkeeper is on the old man's side, but the shopkeeper just calmly asks what the old man is talking about. Seizing the moment of confusion, the con artist makes a break for it. But as the thug tries to give chase, the shopkeeper grabs him by the collar. He explains the old man hasn't paid his bill, leaving the thug utterly frustrated. Huang Ji calmly settles the bill for the meal, leaving Lin Li to fume that they've been outsmarted again. But our boy isn't worried, telling him they'll catch the old man as they set off in pursuit. The con artist sprints through the city streets, trying to lose them in the maze of alleys. He darts past an apartment window, where an angry resident throws his bedding at the two boys chasing him. Spotting a chance for a faster getaway, the con artist grabs a nearby bicycle. He hops on, confident that he's finally shaken his pursuers, but he fails to notice one crucial detail about his escape vehicle. A sudden sharp pain shoots through him as he sits down hard on the metal post. He crashes to the ground in agony, his escape plan coming to a painful and embarrassing end. Huang Ji and Lin Li stand over him, and our boy asks if he's finally ready to stop running. The con artist realizes he can't just outrun them, knowing he needs a new plan, and in a flash of inspiration, he thinks of a way to escape. A moment later, Lin Li asks if they've lost their target in the city streets, but Huang Ji calmly points towards a pile of trash, suggesting they check there. The old man waits patiently, hoping they'll pass him by. Believing he's in the clear, he emerges from his hiding spot in a dumpster, but he's greeted by Huang Ji and Lin Li, who were waiting for him the whole time. Defeated, the old man climbs out, admitting he can't outrun them, but he's baffled as to how they found him, picking up a small clue from the ground. Huang Ji holds up a handful of shell fragments, revealing the simple trick he used to track him. He explains that fragments of clamshells from the porridge stand stuck to the soles of the man's shoes. The trail of shells disappeared at the dumpster, leaving only one logical conclusion. The con artist is left completely stunned by the boy's seemingly impossible observation skills. But Huang Ji knows he's just providing a cover story, since he can't admit the trash bin told him everything. Lin Li is completely starstruck, amazed that his new friend noticed details he completely missed. In reality, his power simply told him an old man had climbed into the bin just minutes ago. Cornered and out of tricks, the old man throws his hands up in surrender. He offers them a jar of herbs and his watch, claiming it's a fair trade for his freedom. But Huang Ji's power reveals the watch is a cheap fake, worth only a fraction of what the man claims. Our boy puts the scam aside, telling the con artist they have far more important matters to discuss. The con artist tries to brush them off, claiming their business is finished. But Huang Ji stops him with a single, chilling question about his son's grave. The old man's demeanor shatters, demanding to know how he could possibly know that. Huang Ji presses his advantage, offering the man a chance to finally get revenge. A wave of panic washes over the con artist as he realizes who must have sent them. Knowing he's cornered, he decides he has to strike first. He launches a surprise attack, aiming a flying kick right at the unsuspecting Lin Li. But Huang Ji moves faster, intercepting the kick and driving a fist into the old man's side. The con artist is sent flying, but not before tossing the jar of herbs back at them. As Lin Li stumbles, Huang Ji steadies him, urging him to chase after their target. Huang Ji holds Lin Li steady, telling him to take a deep breath. He then pulls out a set of acupuncture needles, revealing another hidden skill. With a quick, precise motion, he applies a needle to Lin Li's back. Lin Li is stunned by the sudden treatment, and Huang Ji casually admits he knows a little. But Huang Ji is already focused on his next move, continuing the pursuit of the old con artist. He tries to send Lin Li away, explaining that this fight is now his own. Our boy warns him that getting involved any further could put his life at risk. But Lin Li refuses to leave, insisting they should face the danger together. Seeing his resolve, Huang Ji simply tells him to get in the car, accepting his help. As they drive, Lin Li asks about his connection to the old man, but Huang Ji cryptically calls him a comrade. Lin Li misinterprets the word comrade, leading to an awkward exchange that Huang Ji quickly shuts down. They arrive at a residential building, and Huang Ji explains they're here to set an ambush for the old man. Lin Li is stunned, realizing that after a month of his own failed attempts, Huang Ji found the man's home in an instant. He's now more determined than ever to impress this new master and learn his secrets. Just as predicted, the old con artist returns, cautiously scanning the area before heading inside. Lin Li lunges from the bushes, grabbing the unsuspecting man from behind. He tackles the old man to the ground, declaring that this time there will be no escape. Huang Ji steps out from the shadows, and the con artist recognizes him, demanding to know why he's here. Lying on the ground, the old man defiantly tells them to get it over with if they plan to end him. He realizes he was deliberately tricked, but Huang Ji calmly steps in, claiming it's all a misunderstanding. He reassures the old man that he's not the enemy he expects. He leans in closer, suggesting they continue this conversation inside. The con artist is wary, realizing this kid's actions don't add up. Defeated for now, the old man agrees to take them to his apartment. The three of them head upstairs, arriving at the con artist's front door. But just as he reaches for the handle, Huang Ji stops him in his tracks. His power reveals a fresh fingerprint, someone who isn't supposed to be there. Huang Ji signals for silence, realizing they're not alone. He cautiously approaches the door, listening for any sign of movement inside. With a calm expression, he tells the other two to wait as he prepares to handle the situation. Inside, silent footsteps echo through the apartment. A man in a blue tracksuit prowls the room, completely unaware he's being watched. He casually picks up a remote as if he owns the place. But he's not alone. He silences a younger blonde-haired man, while a small child sneaks up behind them. Just then, angry shouts from outside demand he open the door, accusing him of theft. Huang Ji holds the others back, signaling for them to stay hidden and silent. The three of them watch from the shadows as the tense standoff unfolds. Outside the apartment, the commotion grows louder. Two masked men stand ready, armed with batons and waiting to make their move. The old con artist breaks into a cold sweat, realizing Huang Ji just saved him from walking into a deadly trap. Lin Li is left in awe, realizing Huang Ji's observational skills are on another level entirely. Just then, the two masked men burst through the door, ready for a fight. But they find the room empty, leaving them confused as Huang Ji stands calmly in the shadows. Before one can react, he's struck from behind by an unseen force. The first thug collapses to the ground, taken out in a single, silent blow. His partner spins around, lunging with a knife as he demands to know who's there. But Huang Ji dodges the wild swing with effortless grace. He prepares a counter, his hand poised for a precise strike. And in a flash, he lands a sharp blow to the man's chest. The thug stumbles back, clutching the point of impact in stunned disbelief. The second thug lunges forward with a desperate roar, ready to strike. But his attack is stopped dead in its tracks by Huang Ji's single, unmoving hand. He's easily overpowered and slammed to the ground, his weapon now useless. Huang Ji looks down with a cold, analytical gaze, completely in control. The thug can only stare in disbelief, unable to move his own hand. A final, precise chop to the neck sends the last attacker into unconsciousness. The other occupants of the room emerge, the blonde man completely stunned by Huang Ji's skill. He asks about the incredible move, and Huang Ji calmly explains it was a simple pressure point strike. Our boy then checks the man's mouth, ensuring he can't take his own life. The man in the blue tracksuit asks who these men are, but Huang Ji already knows they were sent for him. The old con artist demands to know who Huang Ji is and how much he truly knows. Huang Ji calmly explains he knew the man's son, who once invited him to join their cause. The mention of his son's name brings a wave of grief over the old man. The blonde man asks Huang Ji if he actually knew the old con artist's son. Huang Ji brushes it off as a story from the past, while internally admitting it's all a lie. He simply read the man's memories and fabricated the most believable story he could. The old man clutches a locket, staring at a picture of his lost son. He tells Huang Ji not to feel sorry, blaming their own overconfidence for his son's death. Huang Ji then reveals the true threat, a powerful alien civilization hidden on the moon. He explains they have human agents who suppress technology and even smuggle people for them. The old man asks if his son was the one who revealed all these secrets. Huang Ji just offers a knowing smile, letting the man believe his own story. He explains that these human lackeys are top-tier billionaires with vast networks. Their influence stretches across multinational corporations and research institutes. They secretly control over 100 countries, a shadow organization known as the Moonlight Alliance. Their emblem is a familiar all-seeing eye, a symbol of their hidden power. He continues, explaining that while the alliance hides the truth, an opposing force has risen to fight back. A group of elites known as the Kunlun Society, dedicated to exposing the alien threat. But the old man reveals their history is one of constant struggle and betrayal. He admits they've never been a real threat, and their current generation is the weakest one yet. Huang Ji continues, recalling a failed mission in New Mexico where the man's son lost his life. The old man breaks down, admitting the mission was a disaster that forced him into hiding. Lin Li is completely lost, grabbing Huang Ji and asking if this talk of aliens is some kind of joke. Our boy explains the grim reality. The Moonlight Alliance trades humans for alien technology. The old man scoffs, assuming the aliens must be using them as slaves. But Huang Ji knows the truth is far more horrifying, remembering the aliens' chilling comment. He reveals that to this cosmic threat, humans are nothing more than food. The old man insists their efforts were a complete failure, that they gained nothing from their sacrifices. But Huang Ji sees through the deception, calmly pointing out that he knows the man retrieved something. The con artist tries to deflect, asking Lin Li why he's so quick to believe a stranger's empty words. Lin Li insists the old man's levitation trick was flawless, a perfect display of energy control. But the con artist just dismisses it as a simple magic trick, leaving Lin Li confused. Huang Ji then explains the scientific principle behind it, a phenomenon known as the Meissner effect. But he concludes that such a feat is impossible with current human technology. The revelation leaves both the old man and Lin Li completely stunned. Huang Ji continues his lie, claiming the man's son told him everything, including his dream to explore the stars. He adds that he was disappointed to find the father reduced to running petty scams. Internally, the old man pieces it together, believing Huang Ji must be a recruit his son found. He tests the story, remarking that his son had high standards and would only befriend someone extraordinary. But Huang Ji counters, recalling fabricated stories of a humble childhood, forcing a flustered denial from the old man. The old man finally seems convinced, believing Huang Ji was truly his son's friend. Internally, Huang Ji breathes a sigh of relief, knowing he's passed the old man's test. He remarks that his son had high standards, so Huang Ji must be someone extraordinary. But our boy just scoffs, recalling more fabricated memories that leave the father flustered and denying everything. The specific details of the lie only serve to further convince him of their connection. And with that, Huang Ji knows he has finally earned the old man's trust. The old man, now introducing himself as Old Wang, asks the blonde man about Huang Ji's involvement. He questions the story, wondering why they would reveal so much to a complete stranger. But he quickly dismisses his own concern, insulting the blonde man's judgment. Suddenly, the blonde man lunges at Huang Ji in a fit of rage, catching everyone by surprise. But Huang Ji vouches for him, insisting he never misjudges a person's character. Lin Li is moved by the show of trust, looking up to Huang Ji as a leader. But Old Wang isn't convinced, arguing that an ordinary student is a liability they can't afford. Lin Li desperately swears he'll keep their secret, but Old Wang questions why they should believe him. He then reveals his true motivation, a lifelong obsession with the extraordinary that makes him perfect for their cause. Old Wang remains unmoved, reminding the boy of the deadly stakes involved in their fight. But Lin Li is resolute, clenching his fist and declaring that he isn't afraid of the danger. Huang Ji then steps in with a chilling question, asking what would happen if Lin Li was already destined to die. He turns to Old Wang, pointing out that his so-called magic trick has already put the boy's life in grave danger. Cornered, Old Wang finally confesses he stole something from a research institute and is desperate for cash. The blonde man then turns to Lin Li with a grim diagnosis, claiming he felt a tumor when he checked his pulse earlier. Without a word, Huang Ji lifts the boy's shirt to investigate for himself. He presses a specific point on his side, and Lin Li cries out in pain. The confirmation sends Lin Li collapsing to the floor in disbelief. Old Wang can only stare, amazed that the kid also has extensive medical knowledge. The man in the tracksuit helps him up, offering him a place in their fight, an offer Lin Li readily accepts. Huang Ji reassures him that the tumor is small and can be treated if they act quickly. The blonde man then raises a valid question. Why not just expose the Moonlight Alliance to the government? But Huang Ji immediately shuts down the idea, calling it a suicide mission. The man in the tracksuit elaborates, explaining they have no hard evidence and the alliance's economic influence is global. The man in the tracksuit explains that going public would be a death sentence, inviting their own destruction. Huang Ji recalls the Kunlun Society's tragic history, how they were wiped out 3 times. They even got a president elected, but he was assassinated 3 years into his term, leading to mass purges. Old Wang laments that their golden era was short-lived, as the alliance crushed them and many members betrayed the cause. After more than a decade of regrouping, they're still too weak to fight back, forced to make small, insignificant moves from the shadows. But Huang Ji confidently states he doesn't believe in invincible enemies, which is why he refused to join Old Wang's son. Old Wang concedes the point, and Huang Ji offers to provide funding and minor help for now. The old man immediately asks for 5 million, but Huang Ji tells him to stay put, offering to fund the procurement of certain items. Old Wang scoffs at the idea of safety, pointing out the ambush that just happened in his own home. After a brief interrogation, one of the thugs reveals they're just local muscle, not alliance agents. The blonde man explains a local boss got greedy, trying to capture Old Wang for a bigger payday. But Huang Ji suddenly moves in on the captured men with a pair of sharp needles. He lands a precise strike, a move that is clearly not meant to heal. Our boy calmly explains he's performing a special kind of acupuncture, leaving the thugs terrified. He warns them that the procedure is irreversible by any hospital, and only he can undo it. The 2 men immediately break down, begging for mercy and pledging their loyalty to him. But Huang Ji corrects them, pointing out that he's not the one they should be following. He gestures to the blonde man, who is now their new boss, much to his surprise. Internally, Old Wang is convinced, realizing Huang Ji's incredible skill makes the story about his son completely believable. Old Wang remarks that his son had high standards, so Huang Ji must be someone extraordinary. But our boy just scoffs, recalling more fabricated memories that leave the father flustered and denying everything. The specific details of the lie only serve to further convince him of their connection. And with that, Huang Ji knows he has finally earned the old man's trust. Sometime later, the group arrives at a desolate warehouse under the cover of night. A hooded figure reports to his boss, confirming their targets have been secured in the car. The boss questions the figure's soft voice, but is told it's just his imagination. Inside, Huang Ji and his new allies wait as the order is given to bring them in. The boss questions why there are 3 of them, but the hooded figure dismisses them as cowards who came quietly. With a sudden kick, the trio is shoved into the warehouse, their plan now in motion. Huang Ji observes the scene with a calm, determined expression. The hooded subordinate stands by nervously as a soccer match plays in the background. Inside, the warehouse is filled with thugs completely absorbed in a game of mahjong. Their leader, a man with fiery red hair, celebrates another victory with a smug grin. Huang Ji and his allies are brought forward, our boy offering a subtle, confident smile. The boss's expression sours, demanding to know what's so amusing. He tries to brush it off, eager to start the next round of his game. But his hooded subordinate seems to have something he wants to say. The boss impatiently asks what he wants, but the man quickly claims it's nothing. Stepping forward, Old Wang finally addresses the leader, confirming he's the man they're looking for. Old Wang scoffs, boasting that he's worth at least 10 times the offered bounty. The red-haired boss cuts him off, demanding to know why he's a wanted man. Old Wang casually admits that he stole something, as if it were obvious. The boss's interest is piqued, realizing the stolen item must be incredibly valuable. Old Wang suggests they discuss the matter in private, a clear attempt to isolate the leader. But the boss isn't falling for it, crushing his cigarette as he demands the answer now. He tells the old man to stop playing games and just spit it out. Internally, Old Wang realizes this gang leader is smarter than he expected, foiling his plan to take him down alone. We flash back to Huang Ji's warning that some secrets are better left unknown. The blonde man confirms their plan. Get captured and neutralize the boss before he can send out any information. The blonde man agrees, ready to find the perfect moment to strike. Old Wang hoists him up, boasting about his past experience arresting thugs. Huang Ji knows that greed makes a man cautious, and if the bait fails, he'll have to step in. But the boss isn't taking the bait, turning his attention to Huang Ji with a menacing glare. He lunges forward with the bottle, ready to end the conversation. but Huang Ji effortlessly dodges the wild swing. The attack misses completely, sending the boss stumbling forward in surprise. Huang Ji immediately counters with a punch of his own, but the boss catches the fist with a smug grin, mocking the failed ambush. But his power has already identified the man's weak points, turning the block into an opening. With a sudden shift in momentum, Huang Ji lands a powerful blow to the man's gut. The boss is left stunned, wondering how the kid changed his attack so quickly. He throws a desperate leg sweep, but Huang Ji leaps into the air to dodge, and twists his body for a perfect roundhouse kick. The strike connects with brutal force, sending the leader staggering back. In a flash, he disarms another thug, casually taking both the gun and the knife. But to everyone's shock, he simply tosses the firearm aside without a second thought. He then puts the knife to the boss's throat, demanding the others drop their weapons. The leader's taunts are cut short as Huang Ji drives the blade into his shoulder. The remaining thugs can only plead for their boss's life, completely at his mercy. With the blade pressed to his throat, Huang Ji orders the boss to keep his men in line. Internally, he knows the wound is just for show, a calculated move to make the leader believe he's a ruthless killer. He then grabs the man's phone, ready to extract the information he needs. The boss can only watch in shock as Huang Ji unlocks the device with impossible ease and scrolls through his call history. And there it is, a contact for a member of the Moonlight Alliance, just as he suspected. But just then, the hooded subordinate grabs the discarded gun, demanding Huang Ji release his boss. The leader smirks, believing the tables have finally turned in his favor. But Huang Ji completely ignores the threat, continuing to swipe through the phone's data. Enraged at being dismissed, the boss orders his man to open fire if he makes a single move. The hooded figure agrees, but old Wang quickly reminds him their goal is to save the boss, not get him killed. The hooded figure cocks the gun, claiming he has no choice but to follow his boss's orders. The red-haired leader's eyes widen in horror, realizing his man is about to betray him. But instead of firing at Huang Ji, the man turns the gun on his own boss and pulls the trigger. A series of harmless clicks echo through the warehouse as the boss flinches away. The subordinate lowers the weapon, his expression unreadable. The red-haired boss can only glare, seething with rage at the blatant betrayal. The man then lands a solid punch on his boss, feigning an apology for missing his shot. The blonde man examines the projectile, realizing it's just a plastic bullet from a toy gun. Huang Ji explains he knew the man was ambitious, so he deliberately tossed him the gun, knowing he'd try to shoot his own boss. He smirks at the defeated leader, pointing out the clear lack of loyalty among his men. Internally, the boss realizes he's completely outmatched, his only leverage now gone. With the blade still pressed to his throat, he reluctantly orders his men to stand down. His subordinates hesitate, asking if they should just cancel the entire deal. The defeated leader turns to Huang Ji, demanding to know who he really is. But our boy already has the answer, revealing the very contact who hired him for the job. The boss is left completely stunned, wondering how the kid could possibly know that number. Huang Ji then gives him a chilling ultimatum, telling him to make the call and report the capture. He explains that by disobeying orders and acting on his own greed, the boss has made himself a loose end that his employers will be forced to tie up. He calmly explains that everyone in this chain is disposable, a pawn in a much larger game. The boss refuses to believe it, questioning why such a powerful man would ever need his help. But Huang Ji reveals he's just one of thousands of disposable informants hired across the country. The leader's mind flashes back to a strange call, remembering his employer sounded almost scared. Huang Ji gives him a final warning. Forget this ever happened and never call that number again. He offers to delete the evidence and let him go, and the defeated boss reluctantly agrees. With the deal seemingly struck, Huang Ji tells him he's free to leave. But as the boss reaches for the knife, Huang Ji's hand clamps down, stopping him cold. The leader breaks into a sinister laugh, revealing he never intended to honor the deal. He roars that while he may have agreed, his men certainly didn't, ordering them to attack. As old Wang and the blonde man grab chairs to defend themselves, Lin Li tries to join the fight. But Huang Ji launches himself into the fray with a focused glare. He dives headfirst into the crowd of armed men, completely unfazed. The red-haired boss roars for his men to take the boy down, but Huang Ji's power activates, analyzing every possible threat. His mind instantly maps out the perfect path through the chaos. He weaves through the attackers with impossible grace, dodging every blow. The thugs are left baffled, confident he's trapped since they locked the door. But our boy isn't heading for the exit. He's running straight for the fuse box. With a single, deliberate motion, he flips the main breaker. The warehouse is plunged into darkness, and the thugs cry out in confusion. A flurry of brutal strikes echoes through the pitch-black room. When the lights flicker back on, the blonde man and old Wang are left completely baffled. All around them, the thugs are scattered across the floor, taken down in the chaos. The blonde man asks how he managed to see in the dark, and Huang Ji claims it's just a matter of training. He smirks, explaining that for him, the darkness is no different than broad daylight. The red-haired boss tries to crawl away, but Huang Ji is already there, blocking his escape. Defeated, the leader tries to surrender, offering to forget the whole thing and give up the money. But Huang Ji just smiles, explaining he didn't come all this way just for a simple fight. The boss assumes he's trying to take over the gang, sneering that it takes more than just fighting skill. But Huang Ji leans in with a quiet threat, warning the man to cooperate if he wants his secrets to stay hidden. The boss tries to play dumb, but his flustered expression gives him away. But Huang Ji calmly brings up a certain hobby, guessing the man has some compromising photos. The leader's panicked denial only confirms his guilt, and Huang Ji presses him on where the evidence is hidden. With a knowing smirk, our boy deduces that something so important must be kept close at all times. He reaches for the man's belt, asking if the secret is hidden right there. Pushed to his limit, the boss roars in defiance, ready to fight to protect his secret. He lunges with a wild kick, but Huang Ji effortlessly dodges, snatching the man's belt in the process. Just as he thought, a hidden compartment is revealed, and he holds up the prize for all to see. Inside is a single memory card, containing all the leverage he'll ever need. As the boss watches in pure horror, Huang Ji calmly inserts the card into his phone. The defeated leader begs for his secret back, but Huang Ji just looks on with a confident smirk. His allies can only watch in disbelief, wondering what kind of secret could bring this man to his knees. But Huang Ji's expression hardens as he tells the man this isn't a game. He's trying to save his life. The gang leader is left completely baffled by the sudden shift in tone. Huang Ji explains he saw the man's messages with his mother, and won't use his family against him. But others will. He grabs the man's shirt, warning him that if he wants to live, he has to trust him completely. With a final, firm gesture, he offers the man a way out of this mess. The red-haired leader finally relents, his resistance completely broken. With a look of grim acceptance, he agrees to follow Huang Ji's orders from now on. The blonde man can only marvel at the sight, praising his new boss for so easily taming the beast they couldn't handle. The leader realizes Huang Ji's skill and presence are more overwhelming than anyone he's ever known. He concludes that this kid isn't just a fighter, he's a true leader, a real big shot. So he turns to his men, declaring Huang Ji as their new boss and daring anyone to challenge the decision. The thugs can only stare in confusion, one of them nervously asking for their new leader's name. Huang Ji introduces himself as Hua Shu, promising they won't regret their newfound loyalty. He then establishes a chain of command, appointing the blonde man to act in his place when he's away. The blonde man, Lin Li, accepts his new role with a look of quiet determination. We flash back to a few hours earlier, as Lin Li asks Huang Ji for his instructions. Huang Ji warns him that their path will be filled with things beyond his understanding, demanding absolute obedience. And with a confident smile, Lin Li pledges his unwavering loyalty to the cause. The red-haired leader acknowledges Lin Li, internally noting that if Hua Shu trusts him, he must be more than he seems. He then gives his men a firm order to report that they found nothing on their last mission. The command is absolute. Everyone is to keep their mouths shut about what happened here. Huang Ji offers to pay the man his promised reward, but the boss refuses, grateful just to be alive. But one of the men warns Huang Ji not to trust the subordinate who betrayed his boss just moments ago. The red-haired leader's expression hardens, knowing he can't afford to forget such a blatant act of disloyalty. The traitor tries to play it off as an accident, pleading for his boss to believe him. With a cold smile, the leader tells him not to worry, claiming he won't kill a brother. But he immediately makes a call, arranging for his violent friend to be picked up and taken to a mental hospital. He hangs up with a grim expression, declaring that betrayal comes with a price, a lifetime of confinement. The traitor is dragged away, pleading for mercy as his former boss watches without a hint of pity. Later, he reveals the secret to his men. The card held proof that he had taken a life. But he explains that following Hua Shu is a far safer path than dealing with his reckless former client. His men agree, admitting their new leader now holds all the cards. Elsewhere, old Wang asks Huang Ji what leverage he used, doubting someone so skilled would leave evidence of a murder. But Huang Ji just smiles, explaining it's a secret he's sworn to protect. With the situation handled, he tells Lin Li it's time to head home. The newly loyal thugs see them off, promising to report any news immediately. Back at their base, Huang Ji presents Lin Li with a case of cash, giving him specific instructions on how to use it. The blonde man is left completely confused by the strange and specific orders. He instructs Lin Li to act hesitant when delivering the money, making the story more believable. He then warns that old Wang will ask about him, and Lin Li promises to stay silent. But Huang Ji corrects him, ordering him to spin a wild tale about being international thieves. When Lin Li asks for his own cover story, Huang Ji gives him a grim and simple one. He has cancer. He's to tell old Wang he's running out of time and needs help acquiring the items on a list. As Lin Li notes how rare the items are, Huang Ji tells him to let old Wang handle it and leave the money behind. He then coaches him on his expression, telling him to maintain a cold, detached demeanor. But Lin Li's attempt comes off as comically fierce, earning a quick correction. As his new subordinate overacts the part, Huang Ji tells him to tone it down. So he tries a different approach, asking a strangely specific question to get the right emotion. He asks him to recall a specific memory, a moment of coldness he felt while watching his mother cook. Lin Li remembers a time he failed an exam, too terrified to tell his mother, and just stared at the crabs in the sink. Huang Ji tells him that was the coldest moment of his life, a feeling he must now embrace. And in an instant, Lin Li's entire demeanor shifts, his expression now cold and unreadable. The next day, Lin Li delivers the promised payment to the red-haired leader, who accepts it without question. But the gang leader can't help but notice the change, wondering if this is the man's true self. The following morning, Lin Li arrives at a used car recycling market, ready for his next task. He hands a backpack of cash to the hooded subordinate, explaining it's a gift from his new boss. The red-haired leader and his man are stunned by the generous offer. The leader then orders the money to be split among the men, a selfless act that leaves his subordinate speechless. The leader kicks his subordinate, ordering him to split the money among the men. He then turns to Lin Li with a newfound respect, asking for any further instructions. But Lin Li just hands him a credit card, explaining it's his own money. The gang leader is left completely stunned by the unexpected gesture. He smiles, impressed by the generosity and deciding not to hold back. Later, he asks Lin Li what their new boss and old Wang actually do for a living. Lin Li spins the tale Huang Ji gave him, claiming they're international thieves who double-crossed a U.S. arms dealer. The leader is in awe, asking what Lin Li's own story is, and gets a grim reply. He's a dying man with cancer. The news only deepens his respect, seeing Lin Li as a true desperado living on the edge. But Lin Li cuts him off, handing him the procurement list and ordering him to find the items no matter the cost. The red-haired leader stares at the list, his eyes widening at the sheer number of banned items. He drops to his knees, pleading with Lin Li that even with his connections, some of these are impossible to acquire. But Lin Li just stares back with that same cold expression, remembering Huang Ji's strange advice. The gang leader is genuinely terrified by the chilling emptiness in his eyes. Lin Li simply tells him this is just the first payment before turning to leave, ignoring the man's desperate pleas. Left with no other option, the leader steels his resolve, knowing he has to deliver. Later that night, under a full moon, a car pulls up to the familiar warehouse. Lin Li and the gang leader are met by two new arrivals, one of whom he greets as an older brother. But the man is furious, warning Lin Li not to throw his life away and questioning why he would resort to theft. The gang leader is moved to tears, believing Lin Li is a good person stealing medicine for a noble cause. He reports that he's acquired most of the items, and Lin Li tells him it's enough. The red-haired leader breathes a sigh of relief, glad the difficult task is finally over. He thanks the group for their help, but the blonde man dismisses the pleasantries. Old Wang praises Huang Ji, impressed by how he's transformed Lin Li into a capable subordinate. He then asks when Huang Ji will join him in England to meet the rest of the Kunlun society. But Huang Ji tells him to be patient, explaining he'll be ready in a month or two. His top priority is his grandfather's health, so he heads to a traditional Chinese medicine hospital to continue his studies. With his Western medicine basics now solid, he's ready to explore new avenues. Meanwhile, a hospital director dismisses a recommendation for a new intern, calling his thesis a complete mess. He orders his subordinate to just assign the new intern anywhere, clearly unimpressed. But his subordinate reveals the intern is already waiting just outside the door. Annoyed, the director agrees to see him, curious about the boy's audacity. And in walks Huang Ji, offering a casual greeting to the director. But the director immediately cuts him off, demanding he justify his flawed thesis. As Huang Ji hesitates, the director's suspicions are confirmed, while our boy scans him with his power. He then begins to explain his theory, linking traditional evil energy to gut bacteria. The director immediately dismisses the idea as absurd, but Huang Ji calmly tells him not to rush. He quotes an ancient saying, arguing that a healthy digestive system is the key to recovery. Suddenly impressed, The director sends him to a university lab, leaving his subordinate completely stunned. Over the next 3 days, Huang Ji moves through Shanghai's top medical institutions, absorbing vast amounts of knowledge and experience. But some places are harder to access, like the National Genome Research Lab, so he waits for the perfect opportunity.